Good evening, and thank you for attending our cybersecurity informational session. My name is Ron Bishop, and I'm the Technology Manager for the town of Sahuarita. To my right is Jerry Keely, the Chief Information Security Officer for Pinal County. Jerry will be presenting on tonight's topic. October is Cybersecurity Month, and so we've invited Jerry to share his knowledge with us. We hope tonight will help us learn about implementing cybersecurity in our daily lives. This chat should be around an hour and a half, give or take. There's also an informational handout available to supplement this session on our website at sahuaritaaz.gov/cybersecurity. Tonight's session is being live streamed to the town's YouTube channel at youtube.com/c/Town of Sahuarita. You can also find our channel by going to youtube.com and searching for the town of Sahuarita. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jerry. Jerry?
So thank you for joining me tonight. Very excited to get an opportunity to share this information about cybersecurity with you. Test. There it is. Okay, took a second. So cybersecurity is one of those things that affects everyone. And that is a big reason why I like doing these types of trainings, because there's nobody that is not affected in some way with cybersecurity. Everything we do is online, digital, and cybercrime is on the rise big time. And it's not going to go away anytime soon. So it's important that each one of us get a better understanding of what cybercrime is, how to protect against it, and defend ourselves, defend our information, and defend our family and friends by helping share this information on. As Ron had mentioned, there is a handout that does go with this training that has some bullet points that covers several of the items that I'm going to be discussing today, as well as some more deep dive information or some augmented information about some of the items that we discussed today. So we're going to talk about why it's important. I think that's kind of a no-brainer. Everybody really understands that cybersecurity is a big deal these days. It's on the news. It's everywhere now, and we're all affected by it. And we're going to help you identify some common cyber information security risks, and then I hope to be able to share our helpful hints, tricks, and tips to help you be safer in your day-to-day life, in your work environments, things like that. So, why is it important to everyone? Well, there's some obvious statistics that I'm not going to sit here and read to you, but at the end of the day, it boils down to money. There is just too much money being made by cyber criminals, and it's escalating exponentially. So one thing I point out here is $6 trillion shifting over to cybercrime by the end of 2021. That's a lot of money, and it's all going to crime. Ransomware is another common one. If you're not familiar with ransomware, what that is a cyber criminal will send you an email and with the hopes that you will click on a link or open an attachment. That attachment will download some software that will encrypt or password protect all of your files, and then they will give you a ransom note, and that ransom note will tell you how many bitcoins you need to pay to get the key to unlock your files and get your files back. That's why it's called ransomware. It has been growing exponentially and getting more and more expensive. If you follow the news at all, ransoms used to be, $50,000, $70,000. I just heard of a ransomware for $70 million. So it's big money, and they know it, and they're doing it more and more often. That often affects businesses, but the user at home is not immune to this. If you click on a link at home that is a ransomware link, your computer would be just as affected. They have grown 380% since 2018. And again, because there is so much money in it and it is so easy to execute. I cover some government agencies and 6,843 incidents with data loss. This is the bullet that I find kind of the scariest. So there, in April of 2021, this year, 3+ billion usernames and passwords showed up on the dark web. Then in June of this year, an additional 8.4 billion usernames and password accounts showed up on the dark web. Well, there is approximately 7.9 billion people on our planet, okay? Of that 7.9 billion, only about 4 billion people use the internet, which means that this being just short of 12 billion, that means approximately, just doing the math, there is possibly a username and account for 3 usernames and accounts for every person that's on the internet today. So that it's very likely that your username and password or account information is out in the dark web through some of these breaches. That is for 2021 alone. You've got to consider all the breaches we've had throughout all of these years that included all kinds of other ones. And so there really is a good chance that your information is out on the dark web now. And then lastly, the FBI reported that identity theft doubled in 2020. That doesn't surprise me because 2020 was different for all of us. People had to learn how to work differently, maneuver differently, act differently, internet differently. It introduced new people doing online shopping that might not have done that in the past. And so the cyber criminals did not miss an opportunity to take advantage of the pandemic and escalate their identity theft. And so that doubled in 1 year. And so that's kind of a scary statistic. So types of information that can be exploited. Some of it is obvious. Names, phone numbers, email addresses, work schedules, any PII, it's personally identifiable information, kind of simply described. Any information that you would use to open a bank account is considered PII. Location information. How that can be exploited is there are geographic areas that are known to be more generous based on a certain type of event, like a weather event or some kind of catastrophe or something like that. And so the cyber criminals know which areas to attack in the event of one of these situations. And so knowing where you are geographically would help the cyber criminals know what to attack you with. Software and hardware, that information, that's obvious because a lot of these crimes are performed through technology. Projects, so that can be exploited by using something that you are doing to develop a rapport with you or strike up a conversation via email or phone or even Facebook or any other social media platforms to, again, knowing what you're doing and saying, hey, we got that in common, and start striking up that conversation. Comments about coworkers or bosses. So this shows that people can be exploited. So if there's an employee in an organization that is just unhappy with their job, don't like their boss, don't like their pay, and they're being very verbose or vocal about it online, sending out stuff on their Twitter feed or Facebook or whatever, cyber criminals are looking for that because they would love to find an unhappy employee at any given organization and say, hey, if I give you this thumb drive and $2,000, will you take that and plug it into a computer at work? Because it's a lot easier to break into a work environment from the inside than it is from the outside. And so disgruntled employees are, they're looking for folks like that and going after them. So this here can be kind of hard to read because it's white on black screen there. But basically, these are games that you will see on several social media platforms, Facebook and stuff like that, and they go around. And they're a fun little game. You figure out what your fantasy villain title is going to be. You'll give us your the month that you were born, the day of your birth date, favorite color, okay, in this case. Well, the problem with that is if you answer that and post that, which you generally do, you share it with your friends, anybody can look at that, and knowing how that game is played, now they have access to your password recovery questions, okay? And so my recommendation is you could go ahead and play these games. They're fun. They can be funny if you know anybody that's doing that. But answer them with incorrect information. Information that can't be used against you because it is a tool to get more information about you. But then there's a secondary trick here is your answers to your password recovery questions, okay? All it needs to be is a word, okay? Many of these things can be figured out about you simply by going to your Facebook page or your Instagram or whatever, even meeting you sometimes. So why not, instead of answering these with real answers, answer them with something made up? So your favorite color could be truck, okay? And you can use that on every website you go to, because if you answer these with your made up answer and you have that up in your head, it's going to be very, very difficult to engineer through. When somebody goes to that page and just says, forgot my password, it's going to ask them something, but it will be something that they wouldn't be able to do a public records search or some kind of way of finding out more information about you. So, where can this information come from? Well, overheard conversations is one way, but actually, probably one of the bigger ways, we give it away. Okay, how we do that is we do the social media postings. Okay, so we tell people what we're doing, when we're doing it, where we're doing it, and we think that only our friends and family are seeing these posts or seeing this information. Not true. Cyber criminals are watching this information as well. So when you post, hey, I'm in Hawaii, what you're also telling a cyber criminal is, hey, I'm not at home. I'm not paying attention to my credit card charges because I'm having a good time on vacation in Hawaii. I am not paying attention to my bills. Now would be an excellent time for you to steal my identity, okay? So be cautious when you're posting information about yourself because it could be used against you by cyber criminals. Social engineering techniques, and I'll get in a little bit deeper, but kind of simply described, it is collecting bits of information about you to be put together to later figure out more about you, your lifestyle, types of vehicles you drive, things you like to do, things you like to eat, things you enjoy, excuse me, to learn more about you. And then they'll put that information together to later be able to use it against you. Another place that this information gets out is obviously an actual system security breach. I've listed some of the big ones. Many of you that watch the news are familiar with these. There are breaches every day that aren't newsworthy. We're in a sad state now where it doesn't become newsworthy unless it hits at least 1 billion records that get lost. If it's only 1 million, that's not that big of a deal. It's not as newsworthy. But this here should tell most of you that your data has been stolen and is in the dark web in somebody's hands. And the reason why I say that is because almost every breach that is out there that has ever happened, usually the bad actors, the criminals, are in those companies' systems 90 to 180 days before detection, okay? So how much data do you think a criminal can steal on a computer network in 4 months? Well, the short answer to that is all of it, okay? Many times you will hear press releases, news releases that was X millions of records and things like that. They very seldom know. And so for PR reasons, they'll announce certain amounts and then say, oh, we found more records and we found more records. Basically, the criminals take everything they can get and run. That's just typical. And they also try to cover their tracks very well. So sometimes it's nearly impossible for the targeted organization to even know what was stolen because the logs were deleted or something like that. So it's safer to go in with the assumption that all of our information or information about us involved in any breach that you ever have heard of, and even many that you haven't heard of and some that are going on, your data is getting stolen by criminals and is going to have the opportunity to get used against you in the future. Social engineering. So I said I'd get background, a little more detail on that. So one of the common ones is a caller pretending to be, somebody a salesperson or whatever. That is one way to get information from you. I do like to point out, because this is probably one of the longer standing ones, a couple of them, Microsoft and the IRS will never call you, okay? Just period. They will not call you, so please do not fall for that scam. I've listed a couple other scams, but really, we're in a day and age, many of you are probably enjoying these phone calls from your warranty is expired to your Social Security is expired to who knows what, that you really, and the phone numbers that are coming in on are fake. So you can't even trust who's calling. Sometimes I've called myself. So since you can't really trust any inbound phone calls or emails, because those can be faked as well, you are wiser to take the tact that it probably is not a good phone call or a good email if they're not one of your contacts or in your contact list. You're better off to assume it's not. Let it roll to voicemail. If it is somebody that needs to talk to you or has some valid information for you, then you can pick it up in voicemail and then return the call, or at the very least, even better, not return the call, go over to a computer and look up the company and make sure that the phone number that you were given or that was recorded on your caller ID is actually the number to the company that you think you're calling, especially if it's a financial institution or something like that, because they might say, call me, there's a problem with your bank account, and you go, oh my goodness, I'll call them, and it might even show that it was from your bank or something. You call that number, and then you're going to some kind of criminal's call center, and then they will continue to steal your information. So make sure that whoever you call is the right place to call. Shoulder surfing. So that is known by many in different ways. One way is in the work environment, you try to keep your computer screen from facing a window or from facing a doorway so that a passerby or even a vendor or anything like that would not be able to see sensitive information on your computer screen. And that is one way, and that's where it got its name, shoulder surfing. But there is another more common version of that probably nowadays, is when you take out your credit card and you put it into that little chip reader at the grocery store, how many of you put your hand over the top of the remainder of the card sticking out? Okay. Many people do not. What they don't think about, and it depends on the design of the card, is what's hanging out could be your credit card number or a portion of it, your name, your bank's name, the expiration date. If it's the whole credit card number, your name and your bank and the expiration date, what do you need to steal a credit card? That's it, okay? Well, how do they get it, you think? Well, that person that's standing behind you in line at the grocery store, looking like they're playing on social media or something, you don't have any idea. What they could be doing is videotaping you. They're videotaping your credit card leaving your purse or your wallet and getting it inserted into that machine, and are able to take and collect that information and go on a shopping spree using your credit card. So, super high-tech way of getting around that, go ahead and put a piece of tape over the sensitive information, like your credit card number, the expiration date, and your name, okay? That way, if somebody gets it, then you don't have to worry about it. Another one that has been brought to my attention a little more recently is when you're at a restaurant and you get the little tray laid in front of you with the bill in it. What do? You lay your credit card in that little tray. If you leave your credit card face up, what can happen is someone can see that credit card sitting there face up, take their little phone, turn it on record, and just meander by as if they're going to the restroom or going to some form of destination or going to see somebody, and they will videotape your credit card as they walk by, and they have your credit card information that they got right off of your table. So kind of think about that. Again, that fancy tape idea would cause problems with that as well. Dumpster diving. It sounds kind of funny. Most people know that if you have very sensitive documents, you don't just throw them in the trash, because people will get a hold of them and use them for nefarious reasons. But some other things that are still sensitive or could be used against you could be a credit card offer. And toward the end of this, I will explain how you can avoid ever getting credit card offers, actually. But you take that credit card offer and you look at it, nah, I don't want that, and you just throw it in the trash. Okay? And so somebody's trolling the neighborhood, they get through and they pull that out of your trash. They go and they take that credit card offer, go ahead and fill out the application, apply for the credit card in your name, check your mailbox every single day, and when the credit card arrives, they take the credit card, activate it, and then go on a 30-day spending spree, and you won't know about it until you get the bill, and now you're on the phone trying to talk to the credit card company, explaining that you didn't make these charges and you didn't even ask for that credit card. It's not a great scenario. Receipts is another one that we hear about. If you have a receipt from a store and you walk out the store, please don't throw it in the trash right there, because criminals are going through the trash at the stores, finding receipts, looking for items that are maybe small, high value, easy to steal, and they're going back into the store, stealing the items, and then returning them with your receipt. Okay? That costs all of us money, because the store obviously has to increase its prices to cover the cost of goods stolen. Okay? And the store clerk would have no reason not to return it. They've got a receipt. Okay? So please take the receipts home with you. If possible, don't take a receipt at all, and that way you don't have to worry about it. But please don't leave those at the stores themselves. Phishing and spearfishing. So it's been around for a very long time. You might be familiar with the term. Phishing is simply an email campaign designed to determine the validity of email addresses. That's its primary goal. Okay, it's been around for a very long time. Been around since email. What they'll do is they will send an email, usually a generic email, to as many people on their list, their email list, and what they're looking for is they're looking for bounce backs, they're looking for out-of-office replies, they're looking for just anything that would indicate that that email address is in fact valid. Okay, that's phase one, is let's see if this email is any good. Okay, some of them will go one step further and put a link in there and see if you will click on it. Okay, because that makes you a much easier target for an email scam or a different type of cyber scam that I'm going to be talking about later. And so that would actually make your email address more valuable, because now you are what is known as a clicker. You are a person that will click on links in emails, and you will likely be easier to fall for certain cyber crimes. And then they take those email addresses and then they sell them out on the dark web and use them for the different cyber criminal campaigns that are email based. Now, spearfishing, on the other hand, that means that the person emailing you, it's really a computer system emailing you, has more information about you. Usually is to your name, and they actually call out your name or a version of your name, either from the email address or your actual name. And they know something about you to develop that rapport. So I'll give you an example. So let's say I have your credit card information. Okay, I got that from the restaurant. But I don't want your credit card. I want your bank. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you an email spoofing your bank's email address, send it to you and say, "Dear Mr. Robertson, your credit card ending in 1234, expiring on 11/21, has had fraudulent activity on it. Please click here to verify some information so that we don't cancel your credit card." And it'll be on their letterhead and it'll look all official. You'll select click here because you'll trust it, because they know the last four of your credit card number, they know when it expires, and they've got your name. It's got to be your bank. And you click on that link and it takes you over to a website that looks just like your bank's website. And you put in your username and password, and bam, they've got, the criminal has got your username and password. They jump in right behind you, change the password to something they know, lock you out of your own bank account, and good luck getting that unlocked, because they're very tight with that. And then they can just do whatever they want with your bank and apply for new credit cards and just kind of go crazy. And that's called a credential theft. And those kind of scams are surprisingly easy to pull off because all you need is a little bit of information about a person to make them believe you are something that you're not. Okay, so that would be a good spearfishing example. And it's up 600%. Again, during the pandemic, people working in different work environments in different ways and doing other things. Of course, again, the cyber criminals are really on this, so it's on the uptick on spearfishing, really trying to go after people and getting them to fall for these cyber crimes, making their money. Smishing. So smishing hasn't really been as popular known. It's basically you receive a text, okay? And that text is either from a 5-digit number or from some other number that's usually not a contact of yours. And it'll say, hey, check this out. Or you won one of 50 Echo Dots, or just something to try to get you to click on that link, okay? Please don't click on the link and be curious. If it's not from somebody you know, you don't want to be clicking that link because you really don't know where it may go, what it may do, what it might do to your phone, steal your contacts, who knows what. So just simply delete it and don't fall for that. It has gotten so bad that Google Voice used to forward texts to your phone when they received a text in the Google Voice system. But because they said, due to lawsuits and all kinds of concerns and issues with these smishing text campaigns, that they've stopped doing that. I believe it was July of this year, they will no longer forward text from your Google Voice number to your phone number because of this problem. Spam. So if you get a spam email or a scam email, whatever you want to call it, please consider not just deleting it and moving on with life. Please consider reporting it. Take a moment and send it to your organization if you work at a company. Send it to your organization's IT department or your email administrator so they can block that. And the reason why I say that is maybe you caught it as a spam or a scam, but maybe your coworker didn't. Maybe they weren't as attentive, or they haven't had their second cup of coffee in the morning or something like that. So by getting that email address blocked in your email system, you can possibly prevent somebody else from falling victim to this. Or at home, you still want to report it as spam. So in Gmail, I'm familiar with, there's a little stop sign at the top with an exclamation point. And that you do, you click on that and report it as spam, because once Gmail has received a certain number, I don't know what their algorithm is, but once they receive enough reports of a spam email, they will block it for the entire Gmail system. And so that will make these spammers' lives harder. They're going to have to keep going and getting new email addresses. So you can help the greater community as a whole by reporting these as spam. And I'm sure all email carriers have some kind of version of that and try to keep the spam out of their systems. So let's talk about some things you can do to reduce your risk, okay? So since this is streamed online, I can't see a show of hands, but how many people love passwords? Okay, the answer is going to be probably none of you, or at least almost none of you. We don't like passwords. We have way too many of them. They're complex. They're hard to remember. We have to change them every so often, and then you enter the old one 3 times and get locked out of your system, and just any number of challenges with passwords. But unfortunately, this is oftentimes your last line of defense against a cyber criminal, okay? So although we might not like passwords, we need to take them seriously because they are what protects your data or your access into that account. And so you want to consider making the password as long as you possibly can, and I do have some tips on how to do this. And then many websites will have a certain password minimum requirement. Please consider not being the minimum person. Okay, if they only require 8 passwords, 1 uppercase, 1 lowercase, and a number, don't try to just meet the bare minimum that you can get away with. Okay, go the extra mile. Make yours that much stronger and harder to crack. Let's not go the opposite direction and make it super duper easy, like making your password, or using a dictionary word, reverse spelled dictionary word, or one of those commonly used words that, or passwords that are used everywhere, because those have all been cracked and they will get through your system very quickly. Okay? Let's not make the cyber criminals' jobs any easier than they already have it. So here's an idea. Take a phrase, and it could be a Bible verse, it could be a phrase that you usually say, it could be a saying on a poster in your office, it could be a song lyric. Just pick a phrase that you can remember, and then take the first characters from each one of the words of that phrase and go ahead and uppercase them, lowercase them, special case them, replace A's with ats, ones with exclamation points, those kind of things that help us as humans make things more memorable. But at the end of the day, that's pretty much gobbledygook, because nobody could really engineer that because they don't know what the phrase is. The phrase is in your head, okay? And that is your key to unlocking your password. Here's another example of another version of that. Again, it looks like gobbledygook, but it is something that makes it more memorable for you, okay? If you use predictable patterns, many people must admit that at some point when they've had a password expire and your password was password 1, what did you do? You made it password 2. Then the next time it expired, you made it password 3, then password 4, okay. The password cracking computers know that we as humans do this, so it immediately looks for that. So if it sees any kind of pattern, even if they're working with a 10-year-old password, if all you've ever done is increment the number at the end of it, then within microseconds they have your new password. It takes no time at all to figure that out. So you really don't want to do that. Another thing is you can insert the name of the site that you're putting that password in. So take your favorite password. So I put the one at the top here, and I put the word eBay in the middle. You can put it at the beginning, you can put it at the end, whatever you like. Excuse me. But what that does is it helps you still remember your password, but it makes it unique for each site that you go to, and it also makes it even longer. The key with passwords is longer is stronger, okay? So you want your password to be just as long as you can possibly and reasonably get it. So, passphrases. So the National Institute of Standards and Technology came out with a recommendation a few years back telling internet site hosts, start looking at passphrases, and there's two reasons for that. One is it would help encourage much longer passwords. The longer the password, the more difficult it is to crack. Secondarily, it reduces the amount of times people write down their password, which is the secondary no-no. So they came up and said, let's use passphrases. So you take a grouping of words, and I said don't use dictionary words, but this I really hate passwords is not a word. It is a collection of dictionary words scrunched together, okay? So it doesn't relate to a word. Almost anybody watching this stream and here in sight can remember, I really hate passwords, okay? It's a very simple one to remember, but it's very strong. So we're gonna go to a website, and in the next screen I'll show you. What it does is you can enter in a password. Don't believe the amount of time it says it will take to crack the password. That's really not accurate. But what it does do a good job of is it helps you identify what password might be stronger than another. So it's a good comparison website. So I just popped up here. So that first password there, 400 years. So if you put that password in this website, it'll say it'll take 400 years to crack that password. This next one would take 6. Why is this one so much easier? It looks just as complicated as the one above it. It's because it is 1 character shorter. 1. That's the difference in complexity. So now let's take a look at this. I really hate passwords. All lowercase, easy to enter on your phone. You don't have to keep switching your little keypads on the phone to get an @ sign and to get a this sign and get that sign. I really hate passwords, all lowercase crunched together. 16 billion years. Okay, so by comparison, it is exponentially much, much more difficult to crack that password. Protect your password as if it's your money, because nowadays it is. If somebody gets a hold of a username or password, they can get into your bank and they've got your money, okay? So make sure you protect them. Don't share your password with anyone because, first of all, you might be sharing a password for a specific intent for a specific site, but what you may not remember is where else you have used that password. So if that password does get out, or that person you shared it with writes it down and somebody else gets a hold of it, could be used against you. So don't share your password, and don't accept the responsibility of a password from somebody else either. Technical support. They rarely truly need your password, but we have noticed that you're at your home computer and you need help on one of your applications. A lot of times they will ask for your password. You don't know the person on the other end of the phone. You don't know if they've got a side job at night of trying to take your passwords and going and trying to hack websites with them, or not hack, steal your information in different websites. So what you'll want to do, instead of thinking, well, I'll just change it when they get off my computer, and you give them one of your passwords, that is already dangerous, because now they can take that password and use it somewhere else. What you want to do is change your password to something you would never, ever, or have ever used, like bubble gum. Just something that you can put on there that you can give them, so that when they are back off of your computer and everything's all handled, now you can go and put your normal password setup back in, and you don't risk giving it to some stranger, basically. Use different passwords for different sites. Now, I already explained putting the name of the site in there, and that's a good idea. But I also realize that that can still be a little bit challenging. So I also recommend purchasing a password keeper. These are very, very handy. Usually they'll have an app for your phone, so you basically have your password file with you at all times. And then you really are only stuck memorizing one password, just one. And that's the password into your password keeper, which is a password vault. And all the hundreds or thousands of passwords that you have in behind your vault, now you just simply go there and you can look that up. Many of them do offer the feature where they will auto-generate a password for you, so they'll generate a very complex gobbledygook kind of password for you, but you don't have to memorize it anyway, so who cares? You're just going to go to your password keeper to look it up anyway. It also helps if you have shared accounts, okay? So with me and my wife, she does a lot of the banking and stuff like that, and she has to do those periodic password changes. Well, she has no easy way of communicating that change to me, especially for the tons of things that we have access to, or vice versa. If I go into a site and have to change a password, it's the same deal. So by having a shared account for us, what we do is we both go into the same account, and if she changed the password or I changed the password, we have the latest password available. And we don't have to try to email it or text it or any other kind of unsafe way of getting it out, or worse yet, writing it down. So they're nice to have. They're not super expensive, but it's your passwords. So it's probably worth a small investment to protect all of your access to everything that you have. Use multi-factor. So if you don't know what multi-factor is, a lot of banks are starting to implement this, is you put in your username and your password, and that website will either text you a number or email you a number or code, and you have to enter that code to get into that website. The reason why multi-factor is recommended is because the odds of the criminal having your username, your password, and your phone is much less, okay? And so, and then if you do have somebody that tries to get into your account, you would even know, because you would get a text for a code saying, here your passcode is. And you're like, wait a minute, I didn't try to log in. So you know somebody has your username and password, you can immediately go to that site and change that password, so you can stop that criminal from trying to progress. So use multi-factor wherever possible, especially for financial situations. Do not write down your password. I've said this a couple times, and I'll say it again. So Sometimes people write down their passwords. I've been in IT for many, many years, and I go into offices, and I'm still amazed at how many people have the username and password on a sticky note right on their monitor, okay? The stealthy ones tend to slide underneath their keyboard, okay, or in the right drawer of their desk. And the problem with that is you might work in a secure area, you trust everybody around you, but what about that disgruntled employee? Wouldn't they be better off sticking their thumb drive under your username and password and making it look like you were the one that caused the virus to hit your company? That's one problem. Secondarily, you don't always know who's going to be in your area. You have vendors that come in your workspaces and do things like spray for bugs or do some electrical work or some AV work or something like that. And you don't know who these people are, and you do not know if they are just stealing usernames and passwords and has an evening job to augment their income by going in and breaking into stuff and stealing information. So that's one thing. The other thing is there can sometimes be events that happen, unexpected events. So I'll talk about one that many of you are probably familiar with. Is I believe it was in January of 2017 or something like that, where there was a reported inbound missile to Hawaii. Big concern, and it was a really big deal. And luckily, there was no missile inbound to Hawaii, but they activated their emergency operations center, and media was there to cover it, and they were very proud of their activation and their response. But this is what made the front page of national newspapers the following day. So you don't always know who's going to be in your area. So if you do write down a password or username and password on a sticky note somewhere, and the media shows up for some reason, could put you into a relatively embarrassing situation. Okay, so you just never know. So please don't do it. So email. So email is by far the largest risk any of you have. And the reason for that is that email is the one form of communication, the primary form of communication, where you can pretend to be anybody with anybody's email address, and you can communicate with anybody. All you need is an email address. It's easy to find people's email addresses, and get them to do whatever. So you've got a direct line of communication with anybody in the world, from anybody in the world. That's what makes it so dangerous. And that is the technique that is primarily used by these criminals, okay? Now, I list it as business email compromise. Also consider it's your personal email compromise, okay? Because it's the same thing. The only reason I say business on this is because they try to keep statistics on business email compromises, where personal email compromises, they don't really keep track of that too much. It happens so much. But it is, it's very dangerous, because once you get a bad actor, a cyber criminal communicating with you, and you've communicated back and developed a dialogue, they will strike and they will get into your world. And so that's what makes it so dangerous. Credential theft, like I mentioned, I want to steal your bank instead of just your credit card. I get to that fake bank website, you give me a username and password, now I'm into your bank. Okay, that's called credential theft. Okay, so if you get an email, like let's say you're at work and you get an email from IT and says we're upgrading our security systems, please click on this link and update your email, or your password information or something like that. Contact your IT department, scrutinize that, because oftentimes that is some kind of credential theft scenario, and they're just trying to get you to log into some website that looks legitimate so they can steal your username and password. Opening files attached to emails. As soon as you open that attachment, if there is a virus in that attachment, it will be immediately executed and loaded onto your computer, okay? And there really is just no stopping it. That's why we say don't open attachments from unknown senders. Don't open, view them, any of that. If you do get one that you think you may or may not need, contact somebody to verify. So if it's at work, contact your IT security team or your IT team and have them review it and make sure it's legitimate before you click on it. I'll give you a great use case. So we have an accounts payable department in Pinal County, and if they get an email with a questionable invoice or a questionable email with an invoice attached, they have to check invoices because that's their job. Okay, many of us that don't deal with invoices, we would just ignore that and say, I know that's junk because I don't do invoices. But somebody that does accounts payable, they have to. So what they'll do is they will send those over to me to check out. And there's a couple departments throughout the county that do this. But I will tell you, in the last 4 or 5 years or so, I don't think we've had 3 or 4 legitimate attachments come through. They have all been bad. Okay, so if your gut tells you it's probably bad, it probably is. And so you go ahead and send it over to report it as spam. If in doubt, please verify the content and intent of the sender. And what that means, there used to be a day in not so distant past where you could accept an email from a coworker, a boss, or a family member and believe that that's who it in fact came from, and you would take the instructions and do it. Well, those days are gone, since they can fake email addresses of family and friends. You can't trust that. So if you get an email from somebody, and not just any email, if it's an email asking you to do something that's out of the ordinary, move equipment, transfer money, buy gift cards, okay? I got an email from my uncle once saying, hey, I went to Mexico on this trip, and I need you to send me $2,500 to get out of jail so I can come home, you know? And so, of course, called him, and no, he wasn't in Mexico. So if you have a family member saying, hey, I got involved with some bad people and they need, you know, $1,500 worth of iTunes cards, please send those to me immediately. Pick up the phone, text the person. Don't email it back, because obviously the email's a scam in the first place, so it's going to go to the scammer. And make sure that is in fact what they wanted. If you're at work and a boss is asking you to do something that's out of the norm, out of the ordinary, question it. You're not questioning your manager's authority. You're questioning whether or not they asked you to do it in the first place. Okay, it's just prudent. And most people should be getting used to that kind of stuff right now. Your regular, normal communication emails, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things that are asking you to do something that's different or suspicious. I'll skip over that one. So URLs or links, okay, so you'll recognize these. These are in email. They're click here, open this, open my account. They're usually in red or blue letters or something like that. And behind them is what's called a URL or a link. And sometimes it's just strictly a link. Could direct you to a dangerous site. It could open up a legitimate site and do that credential theft like we already talked about. Do not click on unsubscribe. Unsubscribe is still just a link. It's a word on the email that if you click it, it will take it wherever it wants to. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to unsubscribe. It could do malicious things. And so we will talk about inspecting links and URLs, because really a lot of the danger in email lies inside of there. So having an understanding on how to read these things is really important. If you do open an attachment or click on a link or something like that, if you're in your work, please call your help desk or whatever your protocols are, because there are usually plans in place to try to mitigate the problem or slow it down or reduce the amount of damage caused. If you're at home and you find yourself clicking on something like that, get your computer off the internet as quickly as possible and just get it shut down. Start there, and then contact your local nerd, your technical support person that you usually work with, and see if you can figure out what's going on with it. Out of office feature. So it is a nice feature that the bad folks have figured out how to use against us, as most things are. So out of office, many organizations require you to put an out of office if you're going to be out for a period of time, but you want to select the My Organization Only option for that. You don't want it to go to everybody that's sending you emails unless, of course, your job requires it. Or you can also select the My Contacts Only. And so if you're very organized and you actually have an out of office, out of country, out of something notification on your personal email, again, make sure you select the My Contacts Only. Otherwise, you are basically helping the fishers because you've proven your email, you've proven when you're going to be gone, who to contact, you've given out more information than you were willing to. So this email here has been around for years. It has improved over the years. The graphics are much cleaner and crisper. The language in it is a lot more accurate, grammatically correct, looks pretty believable. It's good that we're heading into the holiday buying season that I share this, because folks that are waiting on packages fall for this one a lot during the holidays, because you are expecting a package and you want to know when it's going to be here. Especially now that we know of shipping delays and some of these issues, we're going to be a little more paying attention to these kind of things. So this email looks pretty good, but it's not. So we're going to use this email to learn how to read a URL. So what the sender of this email want us to do is obviously click the shipment details. That's where they want us to click. That's where the URL hides, okay? So instead of clicking it, what I'd like you to do is whenever you see these URLs or links, hover over them, okay? And depending on what kind of system you have, if it's Outlook, it's in the lower left-hand corner. If it's Gmail, I believe it kind of pops up in front of it. It just depends on what type of system you have. But before you click, this is that think before you click statement that you may have heard before, find out where it's going to go before you go there, all right? Because the danger is when you go there. So if you hover over this one, this is what you're going to see. ups.fadra.org/ups.html, okay? So this one's a pretty obvious one. If you just hover over it, you know you're not going to UPS because you would expect to see ups.com there, okay? We're not seeing that. So what I'm going to do is take a moment, get a little nerdy on you, and we're going to talk about how to read a URL, because this is where the danger lies, okay? If you can get good at this, you can keep yourself from falling for pretty much any email trap or becoming a victim of any of these scams. So what you do is you go to the first two double // and then you move to the first single // okay? Then you read it backwards, right? So you back up one to the very first dot. That tells you what's called a top-level domain. That kind of tells you what kind of entity you're working with, okay? So .org is a generic one, .net is a generic one. If you're working with an educational facility, it'd be .edu. If you're working with a government, it's going to be .gov, or it could be .us, because the two-digit ones are oftentimes country codes. .in is India, .ar is Argentina. So .br is Brazil, RU is Russia. So you go here, and so that kind of gives you an idea, okay? A lot of times, if you're working with some of your major companies, if you don't see a .com here, you probably can just move on, okay? But for sake of argument, let's continue. So now let's go to the next dot, okay? And so that is the actual website address, okay, of this whole string, and I don't care how long this string is, that's the only things that need to be valid in order for your computer to access this website, okay? So fadra.org is the only thing that has to be accurate. Everything else can be fabricated. So the dot, whatever going this way to the left of that, and everything after the / can all be fabricated by the website owner because they don't mean anything. But the fadra.org, or that portion of it, that needs to be in line with where you believe you're going, okay? If it is not, don't go there, okay? And practice reading those. And I have another example later on, and there's a couple good examples, I think, in the handout as well. Other things you can see in scam emails, some of these are kind of hard to see. They pixelated a lot when I tried to expand them, but the return address says PKG info 651, not likely getting something like that from a UPS. It'd probably be shipping at ups.com. And then the date is in the European format, not likely to be used by UPS, and the word color is in the European format. So By now, those mistakes have probably already been fixed, okay, because they keep improving these emails. But those are just some minor things that you could identify if you really wanted to pay attention. But your better bet is still to learn the URL and think before you click. This is another one that is obviously just a spam email, but what I wanted to point out is it had this PDF document attached to it, which I opened in a safe environment, and what I noticed was something that we've been seeing an uptick on, and that is companies trying to hit you with, we're updating our security, or for improved security measures, or for more security, okay? So all of the security words, a big buzzword. Then it's usually followed by some kind of call to action, some form of urgency, okay? So it's please urgently update yours right away to avoid disruption in services or account. So what they do is they say, for security reasons, we're making this change, but if you don't do it right away, we're going to shut your account off, or something like that. Most professional organizations do not speak to their customers like that and do things like that. So when you start seeing these, what are called panic terms, or insistent information like that, that should really raise your ears and say, wait a minute, something's not right here. I need to really look a lot closer at this. Then, of course, as we hover over our link here, it was going to go to / go to the first / ichanged.com was where it was going. Obviously not Microsoft or Office 365. So this one here is another legitimate email that points out several good things. First of all, there's really nothing on this email initially to cause anybody to be concerned or to think that this email is not valid. Okay, so this is Stephen Miller, which is Pinal County Supervisor, Board of Supervisor Chairman Miller, sending an email to Levi Gibson, who was the finance director. Okay, and he asks, are you available? Quick question, what's the present cash balance of the general fund? Now, earlier I had mentioned that one of the goals of these email scamsters, criminals, is to develop a report. So with that information, we know that whoever is faking this address had access to either Supervisor Miller or Levi's email address to know to ask that question, because in talking with Levi after the fact here, he's like, yeah, that's a normal question. He asks me that every couple months or so, or every few months. And so he said, you know, that's a normal question to come from Supervisor Miller. Well, that was by design. It was to build the rapport so Levi wouldn't question this email in the first place, okay? That is Supervisor Miller's email address, so it's valid, okay? And so then Levi replies, I have some time, you want to call? Miller's like, no, we need to pay a consultant today. You know, we'll send the necessary support documentation. And Levi's like, okay, treasurer balance $23 million. I'll submit the wire transfer to the treasurer office ASAP. Boom, he gets wire transfer instructions for $84,950, okay? Now, none of this is really a red flag because he's communicating with Supervisor Miller. It is not uncommon for one of our executive leadership to request funds and stuff like that. It's a little outside of protocol, but you know, but it's certainly not a big red flag. Levi is going to help one of our elected officials, of course. But what flagged Levi and what I learned from this and why it's part of this presentation is your takeaway is know your audience. What stopped Levi from going any further was the word kindly, okay? Now, you folks watching likely do not know Supervisor Miller, but Supervisor Miller is more of a straight shooter person. He's not a please, thank you, kindly type of person. You might know the type. So when Levi got to that section and said kindly, wait a minute, Miller doesn't talk that way. That is not the way he would say something. And so that was his initial red flag, which kicked off the whole investigation here. So what we learned from that is when you're communicating with family members, coworkers, people like that, we all pretty much maintain a similar communication style, okay? And if you suddenly see a change don't ignore that. If somebody changes the way, like, so if they always start their emails with hi, hi Jerry, and all of a sudden it switches to hello or good day or something like that, or people always close their email with thanks, thank you, and all of a sudden it becomes with regards, kind regards, warm regards. These are flags. They might be the only flag to let you know that you're not actually dealing with the person you think you're dealing with. So Levi's corresponding back and forth, and the email address this was getting routed to was a stolen email address from a construction company in Florida. Okay, that's who he was talking with. Supervisor Miller never received any of these emails. They were getting rerouted to the criminals. Okay, and so another thing to note is the signature line. Okay, so criminals tend to fail on that one a little bit. If you have somebody that you work with a lot or chat back and forth with a lot, and they use their phone, and it's sent from my iPhone, and all of a sudden it changes to sent from my Samsung Galaxy 8 Note, okay, you might want to, again, be a little suspicious. That might not be who you think it is, okay? And then the signature. I happen to know that he always signs his SQM, and he doesn't use Steven, he uses Steve, okay? So somebody that has, a proper first name like that, but they never use it, they use a nickname of some form, and that's how they always sign it, and all of a sudden it changes to their proper name, again, a potential red flag. Look for changes like that. And changes in grammar, because sometimes those are the only thing that you have to possibly catch something going awry in your emails. Some companies use this banner so that if you receive an email from an outside sender, it'll have this banner. Most of the time, we just simply ignore it because it is an email from an outside person. Where you really want to pay attention in your organization is if you're using this banner and the banner shows up, but the email is from a coworker, you need to report that to your email administrators or your IT department right away, because what that means is somebody is trying to steal or use one of your organization's email addresses and they're probably going to try to hit a bunch of other employees as well. So you want to report that because it means it did not come from the inside. It did come from the outside. I wanted to bring this one up, and it doesn't tell the story the way I wanted it to as much, but I received this one, and I received it on my phone, and I looked at it, and I had to look really close, but on my phone, it was nearly impossible for me to see those dots. So I got pay.pal@mail.pay.pal.com, okay? When you scrunch that down into a phone-size email address or reply address, it looked like it was PayPal, okay? So they're using tricks like that, those little dots and stuff, knowing that a lot of us do use our phones for a lot of communications. And it's an easy one to miss. So I just wanted to point that one out. So this was a snapshot of eBay's homepage some time ago. It's outdated. They change it rather frequently. But what I wanted to show you on this is it can make the web page look like a legitimate eBay page, okay? But if we look at the URL and talk about what we learned, you're on a web page, and we think we're on eBay. Well, if you go up to the address bar up here and read this URL like we just talked about, you go 2 forward slashes and you go all the way over here to the first single slash, back up 1 dot, IN. We already talked about that. That's India. Okay. Then you back up 1 more dot and you're going to update. So really the website that you're on is being hosted on update.india. And all this other gobbledygook, the signin-ebay-com, is fake, trying to trick you into believing that you're signing into eBay, okay? So, again, learn to read those URLs. Another thing that if you really good at attention to detail, another thing you could look at if you didn't want to mess with that part is, we see this a lot, is they forget to upgrade or update the copyrights on websites. Now, legitimate sites forget to do this too, by the way, especially during the year changeover, which is coming our way too fast. But that can be another indicator. If you see a really old copyright on a particular site, that could be another flag. Just a little harder to detect. This here is a hacked website, okay? And so the person that got here actually got here from Home Depot, okay? If you don't know this, a lot of your major vendors and large websites, they host adware or clickware. Sometimes you've heard it called clickbait, but they host icons or options on their website that they don't actually own, okay? They just rent the space out to these vendors, these other people. And so what attackers do is they actually go to these vendors and these other people and attack their websites because they won't have possibly as good of a security team, security posture, and all of that. So it's easier to hack one of these little sub-clicks. So she clicked on a little thing that says save 10%. She was on Home Depot and she wanted to save 10%. Cool, that makes sense. Brought her over to this company, which is a valid company, couponslash.com. It's a real company, but they'd been hacked, okay? So what you see here is, first of all, they made the site try to mimic a Windows site, so they wanted to try to make it look a little familiar to some people. Then they posted this 844 number all over the place. That's the number that if you call it, they will tell you that there's a virus on your computer. You need to let them log in so they can fix it for you, and then they'll hit you up for $3,000 or something like that after they put the virus on your computer. It works backwards. But basically, when you find yourself on a site like this, okay, they're a very scary site, the first thing you want to do, step away from your mouse, back away, take a breath. Just relax for a moment, okay? Then you do not want to click anywhere on this site. The fake pop-up blocker, don't hit that X, don't hit that leave this page, stay on the page, don't hit the OK, don't hit the X, don't hit the X on top. All of this is programmable, okay? And so if you land on one of these hacked pages and literally click anything, you could execute the badness, okay, that this site was trying to bring to you. Even the white space, okay, is programmed to do badness, okay? So you can't even click on a clear space safely. So you have two options here. First one would be to go to your browser, right-click the icon for whichever browser you're in, and a pop-up menu will come. This is from the operating system. And you'll select Close Window or Close All Windows. Okay? Select that and let the operating system force this site to shut down. Don't interact with it whatsoever. Another even easier way, just turn your computer off. Okay? That'll just knock it out. Okay? But is a little caveat there is you will want to go and clear out your browser history. And the reason you'll want to do that is now that you have been on this site, your browser knows that site exists. So if I go back to this computer and I try to go to cooking.com, as soon as I type in CO, this is going to pop up as a selection at the top of my list because I was there most recently. Okay, so you want to clear your browsing history so that you don't risk that happening. Okay, and then if you have additional concerns, run a quick virus scan if you land on one of these sites, just in case. Mobile devices. Okay, so many of us have them, many of us use them, many of us can't really do much without them. We're absolutely lost if we don't have our phone. But we've gotten so used to these things being a part of our life that we've gotten lax. We don't take the proper security precautions. I read an article recently said that the more information about you can be found on your mobile device than can be found in your home. Okay, and in my case, I believe that is probably absolutely true. Okay, and so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a password on your device. Now, luckily, the newer, more modern devices won't let you go passwordless. Most of them force passwords, which is awesome. I love that. But turning on the auto lockout, so it does you no good to put a password on there, but never have it turn off, okay? So you certainly want it to lock out. So like mine is currently set up that if I lay it down on its face, it will automatically lock itself. Because, we set our phones laying around. Good example, keep a shopping list on my phone. And let's say I'm going through the grocery store and I'd look and, I need that case of water. So I set my phone down on the shelf, reach down, grab that case of water, slide it down the bottom of the cart, and I continue to walk on, and I left my phone behind. If I don't notice it right away, somebody walks in behind me and grabs me, they got an unlocked phone that they can now get all my information from and take it and run, okay? If your device is lost or stolen, if it's a county issued or owned or managed device, then you'll want to call your IT department, okay? If it is a personal device, please contact your carrier immediately, but I say with caution, because if you report your device stolen, then by law, they have to lock that device out from ever being activated again, okay? So, if you didn't actually have it stolen or lost and you find it, you could possibly, if you called and reported it stolen, you could be out $1,000, even $1,000 plus. These things are expensive nowadays, okay? So if you find yourself in that situation, contact your carrier and have the service suspended while you conduct an appropriate search. And when you're confident that it has been lost or stolen, then go ahead and contact the carrier, okay? So yeah, be careful with that. Craigslist comes with your typical Craigslist warnings, okay? Thieves they go into grocery stores, they see phones laying around, they steal phones, they throw them up on Craigslist real cheap, try to get you to go in and buy them. They'll tell you the battery doesn't work, but trust me, it's going to work. They'll take your money and run. Or you could even call and see, and it says, yeah, it's fine to be activated, only to find out then it gets reported stolen the next day because the person they stole it from was conducting their appropriate search. So kind of a sticky wicket. So just kind of the typical Craigslist caution. Always, when you're using Craigslist, use caution. Links in email. So the reason we want to be careful with these is, and this is really only if you get an email from an unknown sender, you don't know who it came from, but there's a link in it. Please, well, if you can, don't open it, okay? If you can, wait till you get to a computer so you can hover over it and actually read the link, do that. There is a way of reading the link on these phones. Certain models, it's a hard press. Other models, it's a light press. But I've noticed if you press too hard or too light, it ends up activating the link and taking you over somewhere where you don't know or shouldn't be. So wherever possible, when you get these unknown ones, set them aside, let them be, wait till you're in front of a computer so you can inspect the link appropriately and safely. USB, portable devices. Okay, first of all, these are wonderful, convenient devices. Okay, those of you online won't be able to see them very good because they're tiny, they're portable. But USB devices, many of you are familiar with. They're very convenient, been around for a lot of years. They're great for sharing information from computer to computer or carrying information around, carrying software, files, things like that. But unfortunately, these criminals have come up with ways to use these devices against us, of course. You'll hear that as a theme throughout the entire presentation, basically. So one of these is a real thumb drive, and the other one is what's called a rubber ducky, okay? What a rubber ducky is it looks like a thumb drive, but when you plug it into a computer, it registers as a keyboard and injects whatever they want it to do at the speed of about 1,000 words per minute, okay? It's very, very fast. Even worse is the screen of your computer doesn't show anything happening. It looks like nothing is going on, so you don't even know what's happening in the background, okay? I do have a demo I'll try to show you that should show the rubber ducky in action. I have a real rubber ducky, but really had to fight with it to get it so it would actually display on the screen, because by design they're not supposed to display. Well, what's so dangerous about these is this right here. I don't know if you online will be able to see that. Okay? That's what makes this attack so easy to do, because if you simply just leave a thumb drive in a lobby, in an open area, in a parking lot, someone will walk by and see that, pick it up, and being the good Samaritan that they are, they will take it right on into their computer and plug it in and test it to find out whose it is. If it's a rubber ducky, then they get the bad program, whatever that was designed to do. There's also another one called a kill drive. Okay, what the kill drive's purpose is literally that. If you plug that into your USB, it will blow the motherboard and the hard drive. Okay, and render your computer useless. Okay. The scarier part of that is that these devices are available online. My rubber ducky cost me about $45, $49, something like that. And last time I looked, the kill drives were about $50 online, okay? So they're easy to get, they're easy to find, okay? So that's what makes them extra dangerous, all right? Another thing you'll run into, is that these can also carry malware. So they carry, keyloggers is a real common one, but thumb drives can have malware on them. So again, if you get a hold of a thumb drive, you really would like to know the source of it, if at all possible, before you go plugging it on into your computer, okay? Antennas. So not probably in the traditional sense, but your wireless mouse controller is in fact an antenna that connects to your computer and can remote control your computer from some distance away. Could be quite far if they've got a good amplifier. And you don't even know that they're there. Go in, they actually have to, they'd have to do something to make the video actually show. So your mouse controller, there could be somebody like parked in the parking lot at your apartment building with the right software and knowledge, and they could literally go through your mouse controller and get into your computer that way, okay? And there really isn't any way around it. It was a vulnerability found on every mouse controller produced before 2014. And so we used to tell people, well, get something newer than 2014. Well, in 2017, they exposed another vulnerability. So I'm not telling people that anymore because they'll just continue to find vulnerabilities where they can use your mouse controller to get in your computer. So you're better off going wired if that's a concern of yours. Okay? It's really the only way around that. Internet of Things, IoT. Many of you have probably heard of this term. Simply stated, it's anything that connects to the internet that is not a computer or a phone. Okay, so here's a short list that you all will recognize, and obviously it's a very short list compared to what's out there. Internet of Things, there's tons. Everything's smart nowadays, so there's a ton of things out there. The problem is that many people don't take the time to secure these devices. Okay, so we got these really cool little snazzy, cameras, and we got Ring doorbells, and we got all these things, but we don't put any security behind them. We don't change their default password, or we don't. Well, that's the big one, is the default password. Or if it's multi-factor is available, we don't activate the multi-factor. So we leave these devices exposed. Well, the problem with that is that bad people use these to get into our world, okay? To get to your camera so they can film you in your home and you don't even know it. Or your TV that's listening to you, okay? There's a feature on most new TVs called Smart Interactivity. So you get this new television and you turn it on and you're all excited and you're going through all those menus to set it up. And there's a feature in there that's called Smart Interactivity. Companies call it different things, but it's really talking about improving your viewer experience. That's what they tout with that. And what it's actually doing is it's actually turning on the microphone and the camera on your television so that the TV can see who is watching, and the microphone can listen to what you're saying so that they can target advertising. So if a child is sitting there watching it, they can do children advertising, and if it's an adult, they can do adult advertising. Or if you say certain words, they can target advertising to you, okay? So this may sound paranoid, but pretty much everything that has a camera is filming, everything that has a microphone is listening, okay? And you could do a test. Just someday pick a phrase that you would never say, would not have a reason to say, and just say it. And you will be amazed at how fast suggestions show up in your Facebook feeds, or emails start showing up about this, or advertisements on your television start coming across about this random item that you brought up, okay? And you'll see. I mean, it's usually like within 10 to 15 minutes. It's that fast. So, yeah, take my word for it, but test me if you'd like. And then light bulbs and irrigation systems are a couple of the things that have been noted. I'm sure there's other things that are kind of notorious for broadcasting your Wi-Fi password. So you've got a smart light bulb, that's all good and fine, Nest, turn on the light. The issue is that a lot of these devices don't actually encrypt your password. So it's going out in the open airwaves. It's Wi-Fi, so it's just wireless information. So somebody in a drone or somebody driving by with an antenna in their vehicle can pick up your Wi-Fi passwords from your irrigation systems, light bulbs, and certain other devices. Okay, so you got to be cautious with that. So change the default passwords. I had already said that. And don't forget your home wireless router, all right? That is not, I'm not talking about your Wi-Fi, I'm talking about the router that connects to whatever your internet service provider is, a DSL or if it's Cox, you know, any of those things. And it's the password that's in there, all right? So usually when it gets set up, it comes with a default password or the password is put in by the technician that installs it. The problem with that is that technician's probably going to use the same password on every one they install in your neighborhood. So what you want to do is make sure you go in and change that password on that device to something only you know or you and your family know, okay? Make that, because that is really the nasty portal from your internet world to the ugly internet world, right? So you want to make sure that's good. And then I do say don't buy something dumb when something, or don't buy something smart when something dumb will do. I realize that's getting harder and harder because now everything you buy has to be smart. Okay, that's just kind of the sales thing. If you get an item that is smart though, consider whether or not the smart feature is something that you want or will use, okay? So there might be an item that you want and it has all the features and functions, bells, whistles, and everything you want, but you really don't need internet connectivity. Well, buy that device if the price is right and just don't connect it to your internet, right? Just don't use the smart capability. If you are going to buy a smart device, just consider, kind of think like a criminal for a moment, but consider how it could be used against you, okay, before you make that purchase, to see if the gain outweighs the risk, okay? It's a decision you should make on anything smart that you buy. Some computer security reminders. So even if you're in a locked workspace in your office, you know, at work, always still lock your computer when you step away, even for a moment. So that disgruntled employee that's got that thumb drive, they'd love to plug it into your unattended computer while you're off getting a cup of coffee. Would not be awesome. So make sure you always lock your computer. Never click on links or open attachments from unknown senders. If you take nothing else away from this presentation, take that away. Never, never, never click on those or open those attachments. That's where the danger lives. Caution when downloading software from the internet. Make sure it is from from a valid software company. When you Google something, a lot of the things at the top have the word ad next to them, okay? That is purchased space. That is the way companies get their products promoted and moved to the top. That can also be purchased by criminals, okay? So you want to make sure that you're going to a valid website and a trustworthy website. So where possible, key in the website into the address bar so you know exactly where you're going and rely a little less on some of these search engines. They can sometimes distract you. Run antivirus, keep it up to date. That's kind of a gimme. It's obvious. We should all be doing that. Never save passwords with Remember Me. Okay, so there's two flavors of that, but the Remember Me that comes with Google, with Chrome, and I think IE has it as well. The reason you don't want to use that one is because all your usernames and passwords are stored in the same file on your computer. So if your computer happens to get hacked, hacker's going to take that file, then they're going to decrypt it and they're going to get a hold of your usernames and passwords and be able to get into those sites. Or if your computer is stolen, let's say, and so somebody gets into your computer, now they can go to every site you ever logged into and remembered usernames and passwords for it. It is likely you won't remember everywhere you've ever been. Pretty sure of that. So just for safety reasons, security reasons, please don't let your computer remember your usernames and passwords. I say never save credit card information on sites. That's impossible, right? Because there are many sites that do require a credit card on file, okay? So what you could consider doing is using a burner card for sites that allow that. A burner card is just simply a credit card that you get that you can just buy one outright, or you can buy one that's rechargeable and you can keep putting money on it and keep it going to have that credit card on file, and that way you can limit your potential losses. You can also get a web-only credit card. Some banks offer these, and what that does is that it will usually come with a lower limit. It will be a different number than your other credit cards. It's not actually even a physical credit card. It's only usable online. But what's nice about it, it goes through some extra fraud scrutiny or through their fraud department. And so if a website has been breached or reported that they had been hacked, then you go to make a purchase on that site, you actually might get warned, or your purchase might actually get stopped by your bank because that site was hacked. Or if you do attempt to make a purchase on a site that has already been reported as bad, that purchase will get stopped by your bank before it even happens, before the criminals even get your money. Okay, so those are pretty handy. And if you don't have those options, another option would just be to go get a credit card that has a lesser amount on it and has its own unique number, and put that on those websites. And that way, if it does get lost or get stolen or hacked into, then your losses are minimized. HTTP versus HTTPS. Okay, so the S stands for secure. Okay, look at it that way. And so there's nothing wrong with HTTP sites for data consumption, okay? Because everything that you're communicating between your computer and that website is unencrypted, plain text. Anybody recording that internet pipe can read it, okay? Whereas HTTPS does an encryption. It's not a super encryption, but it is an encryption between your computer and that site, so the data isn't as easily stolen. Okay, that's the primary reason for that. So, if you just need to look up a recipe, check a price on something, fairly benign, then going to a not secure site, because they generally won't pay the money to get the HTTPS certificate. It's not worth it to them. They're just serving up information. Then those are okay. But as soon as you have to put in a username or password, credit card, any of that, you better see that lock and HTTPS. Store your important files on your company's shared drives. Okay, most companies have backup solutions. I hope so. Hope all companies do, so that if it's files that are important to the company are stored on those, shared drives, they get backed up, and that way, if we have a catastrophe, we can recover from it. We hope. Okay. For your home, consider getting a USB drive, an external USB. It could be a big one, could be one of those little tiny ones. Plug it in, back up all your important files, and that's your photos, your tax records, resumes, music, whatever's important to you. Get it backed up, but then make sure you unplug it, because if you do get hit with ransomware and your backup drive is plugged in, they're going to encrypt those files as well. So you want to unplug it. So if you have one of these little thumb drives like this, it's big enough to hold all your files, put your important files on here, and then go ahead and throw them in the sock drawer. Somebody breaks in your house and steals your computer, you've lost all your computer and you've lost all your data, but you've still got access to those very important files that may not be replaceable for you, okay? So added security for you. Never use open or public wireless. They are not secure. It really bugs me that just because it has a password, our phones tell us it's a secured. That doesn't mean it's secured, okay? It just means it has a password, okay? So if you're on any public, favorite coffee shop, at the hotel, any of these kind of places, you do not want to do financial transactions or anything that could expose you, okay? So do not use them for that kind of stuff. Data consumption, that's fine. You want to check a price, you want to look up a news article, something like that. Yeah, saving your data and using public is usually fine. Email accounts are almost free, and they really are free. So why not consider separating your life out via email, okay? So have one email account that is for friends and family only, okay? And that one will likely barely ever get spam on it, just because it's only for friends and family. Then set up another one for social media, which will get spammed. Get a bunch of junk mail in there. And then a different one for website registrations, and then another one for purchases, maybe a separate one for your bank. get separate ones to divide your life up so that if you get an email from your bank to your friends and family account, you already know it's a scam because you know that's not the one that your bank had, okay? So you can avoid that. So that's just a good way of cleaning up your world. And then there's less mailboxes you have to monitor all the time. So general security reminders, some of these are very work specific, so follow your work security rules, but mostly pay attention to public or people walking around in secure areas that maybe shouldn't be there. That could be up to something no good, because that is a common threat out there. Small charges on your credit card under $1, okay? That's known as a probing charge, okay? If you go on the dark web and go to buy credit cards, you can pick them up, $20, $30 for a credit card. And since these criminals don't trust the criminal they're buying them from, they need to make sure the card is working. So what they will do is a quick probing charge. If you see a small charge on your account, please don't ignore it. It could be a probing charge, and so once you verified it, that it's not one of yours, call your bank and cancel that credit card immediately, because it'll usually be followed up by a very large purchase at Apple or Amazon or something like that. Don't pay for dark web searching promoted by companies, okay? They might and will search thousands of websites on the dark web for your information. That is true. But that's probably not the millions of sites you're really worried about, okay? They will only search some that they know of, and so that's really little to no protection for you. So don't waste your money on that. The dark web is actually not searchable by design. It's not even a searchable version of the web or the internet. So you can't even search it. So don't waste your money there. Credit freezes. Okay, so this one is kind of a biggie, all right? So many people have never heard of a credit freeze. And before the Experian breach, you used to have to pay for it. You had to pay $5 for each agency to freeze it, $5 again to unfreeze it. And so people generally wouldn't do it, and it wasn't well advertised. The credit card companies don't want us to have credit freezes because they want to send us those credit card offers. I earlier told you I'd tell you how to stop them. This is how you stop them. You put on a credit freeze on your accounts. So on that handout, there's links to the big three: Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. It's very easy to do. You go to their website, go to that link that's on that handout, and you put in some information about you, and then you answer some questions that's found on your credit report. So you need to know your credit report a little bit before doing that. And then you put in a PIN. And that PIN, please don't lose that PIN, because it'll be very difficult to back out of that one. But you put a special PIN on there, and it freezes your credit. Now, nobody can get into your credit account at all. They cannot open up a credit card, buy a car, buy a house, any of that kind of stuff. And also very difficult to steal your identity without the ability to get into your credit, okay? So you really want to make sure you do a credit freeze. I can't stress that too much. It's quick, easy to do, and they made it even nicer. Several of them now, at least one of them I know of, have an app that you can actually freeze and unfreeze your credit right from your phone, nice and handy. And they also, when you unfreeze it, you have an option right there to do an automatic refreeze. So you can say, refreeze my credit in 2 hours, in 24 hours, on this date. So it's not even barely inconvenient to have your credit frozen. And now it's just sitting off there, because 99.9% of your life is not spent using your credit, okay? It doesn't affect your credit cards. It doesn't affect your credit score, any of that kind of stuff. All it does is just keep any prying eyes out of there from using your social to get credit on your behalf, okay? I put in here, don't forget the kids. Over 1 million minor Social Security numbers are used for identity theft or credit fraud every year, costing Americans over $5-something million a year, last statistic I heard. It's probably gone up since then. They're not using it, so you're likely not paying attention to it. Now, if they don't have previous credit history of any form, and obviously most children don't, then there is a couple extra steps you have to go through, which is explained on the website. But why not just freeze the credit and leave it frozen until you're ready for your child to start building credit or start adulting or go to college or whatever, whenever they need to start doing that kind of stuff. And that is just a nice, comfortable sense of security for you, something you just plain don't have to worry about. There was, last year, there was a girl that opened up a line of credit, a 6-month-old, that opened up a line of credit for $50,000. A few years back, there was a 14-year-old whose identity, when the family went to take her to get her first bank account credit card, she was already $750,000 in debt, and her identity had been stolen 28 times, okay? So please consider freezing it and just leaving it frozen, and then just unfreeze when you need to. And then the last thing I bring up, escrow scam. So I get this word out because it's not well broadcast out there. So an escrow scam is you're making a purchase of a home. So if you or anybody you know are in the midst of buying a home during this home buying frenzy, know this, that your escrow company will not email you instructions to wire your closing monies to an account, okay? So that's a scam, and it's a very sad scam because a week before you go to close on your house, you get an email from your escrow officer saying, here, wire your funds over to this account so that we can sign and close smoothly next week. And so you send all of your hard-earned money wired over to this account. It all goes into that account. It is now stolen. You show up to buy your house. You're very, very happy, only to find out all your money has been stolen. You might not have a place to live. You certainly can't afford to buy another house, and you just lost an extraordinary amount of money. It's a super sad story. So please let people know. I know escrow lets folks know, and they also try to let your realtors know. But sometimes the realtors forget to pass that information on to their customers, and their customers fall for this scam. It's a very scary story. So what I'm going to do is wrap up real quick. I think we're on time, right? So I am going to take and do one little last demo here. And so I'm going to be walking over here, and I'm going to take my rubber ducky, and I'm going to plug it into my display computer over here, and then I'm going to step away from the computer, and you are going to see the rubber ducky in action. Take my little plug thing out. Okay, so it just dinged. Now I'm stepping away, and I'm just going to come and walk up here and show you that the computer is running all by itself. It's not. It's the rubber ducky executing a file on that computer on its lonesome, okay? So be very cautious with these thumb drives. That's my demo. So you want to close this up?
Sure.
Mr. Bishop? Thank you, everybody, for your time, your attendance, and really appreciate it. I hope everybody learned something. Hope you learned something of value. I guess there's one thing to close with. Everything is not always as it seems. We need to add more caution into our lives. Lots of crime, lots of cybercrime out there. Pay attention. Think before you click, and just be more attentive because there's enough badness going out there, and you don't want to fall victim to some of these crimes. And please share with your family and friends so that they don't fall victim to some of these crimes as well. Thank you.
And thank you, Jerry, for joining us for Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Sure.
I'll point everybody to our website, sahuaritaaz.gov/cybersecurity for helpful information and for the supplement to tonight's program. Okay, thanks for joining us.
Have a great evening. Thank
Good
you,
night.
everybody. Bye.